today's whiteboard work kind of brought back some of the concepts and forced you to think like what is being asked of me. I would strongly suggest it has to be neat and it has to tell you what it is that you need. Because if you just have a bunch of numbers with examples and it's just like blah, right? It's not going to help you on a test or an exam. Like, so take the time, do it right the first time, right? Copy down the questions correctly. I see quite often, I don't know why. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm investigating. When it comes to lowercase I, a lot of students put the payment in here. Like your payment was what, 1730.55? So students put the 1730.55 in here, and then something blah blah blah. Like this, the rest is right, but this is not. So mortgage, remember, is when you take the price of the house and you take away the down payment, you're paying a chunk down. What remains is when you subtract it, that's called the mortgage. So I want to see this number, like what you get when you subtract. I want to see that because look at the mortgage. It shows up here. It's used there for lowercase I, and it's used again for total interest. It's used again, so it shows up other times. That's why you need to make sure what's my mortgage. Do not mix up mortgage with mortgage payment. They're not the same. Mortgage is the entire amount you owe. Payment is the installment, right? The monthly bit by bit that you're chunking. Also, maybe I should clarify one more time on the side here that your payment is made up of two components. There's a principal portion and there's the interest portion. I'm just going to make sure nobody's what's happening, guys? I can see you under the stairs there. What's happening? You're not supposed to be in class? Yeah? Who's your teacher? Interesting. Hide and seek during class. Anyways, go to class. Principal, interest, that makes up your payment. Remember the trifecta, right? The payment always has two chunks to it, but we don't see this most of the time. We just make the payment, right? Like, hey, just take the payment, $300 a month, whatever, for the car, for the house, just take the payment. But really, this is happening in the background. Okay, we also talked about, very important here. I'm scrolling down. You need to know ways, right, to decrease the total interest paid. Guys, you know how you sometimes want to save a couple of dollars, like 150 whatever dollars on an item that you purchase? Isn't that nice when you save money? Black Friday sale, like $200 off. I'm telling you that in total interest paid, that's thousands of dollars off. And some people don't care, don't seem to care. It's like, I'm just going to make the payment because I don't want to pay extra, right? But total interest is going to save you thousands of dollars, literally in your pocket and not in the bank's pocket, right? So there are several ways of doing that. Number one is adding or increasing your payment. Make an additional payment. Make more of a payment. It's up to you what you want to do. So that's one way of decreasing the total interest. Let's go to page 26. You just got to follow me, got to kind of stay on your toes here a bit. Number two, that's another one, increasing the payment frequency. Frequency means how often. So this is on page 26. So if you pay it faster, you're going to pay it off sooner. So watch here. You go from 25 years, just making a monthly payment, to 21 years, basically 4 years less. If you go with bi-weekly, which is every 2 weeks, you end up paying 2 extra payments a year going bi-weekly. That's why that is. Okay, because 52 weeks divided by 2 is 26. You make 26 payments versus only 12. Okay. And then two other ways of decreasing the total interest you pay is save up a larger down payment and decreasing the amortization period. So like paying it off faster, paying a loan off faster. That's basically what that is. And there's also a positive side effect of increasing your down payment. It will also reduce your monthly payment. Like if you pay off more, you pay less a month to begin with, right? So not only do you save on interest, you also get to have a bit more cash every month. And we all know how important it is to have cash at the end of the month, right? Especially with inflation going crazy. Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll use this time once to show you something cool here. Want to see this? This is a different, this calculator is kind of fancy, but it is really powerful. In Applied, we have something called TVM Solver. So let's say you start when you're 8, let's say you start when you're 20, because you want 2 years to kind of settle down. When you're 20, you're gonna save up money until you're 60, let's say. So how many years go by from 20 to 60? How many years? 40, right? And let's say you make monthly contributions to your bank. Let's say you only get like a 2.5% interest rate. And let's say you start with $0 at first, but you're gonna put $350. You're gonna put away $350 every month for 40 years, which is 480 payments that you will be making. Okay. FV is future value. Let's see how much money you would have if you put away $350 every month over 40 years. Ready for this? You would have $288,000 saved up by the time you get to 60, the age of 60. If you put away $350 every month. So saving starts with you putting money away, not necessarily by the interest rate. It's time. Time is on your side. If you wait until you're 40, 50 and start saving up, you're not going to have nearly as much money. Watch. If you start saving when you're 40 until you're 60, how many years will have gone by? 20, right? So let's put that scenario where you only make 240 payments. How much money would you have then at the age of 60? Ready for this? Only 108,000 versus 288,000. And I know what you're thinking. This is some magic that you're doing here. I don't understand this calculator. Don't worry so much about that. The lesson here is put money away. Put it away in a savings account. TFSA, have you heard of that? Mr. Isfeld talks about TFSA. If you had Mr. Isfeld, I don't know if the other teachers do. Tax-free savings account. Anything you put in there, any interest you earn, you don't pay taxes on, which is huge. At first, you might say, I just earned $100 on interest last year. Big deal. But once you start getting into 100,000, 200,000 down the road, you're making thousands of dollars in interest every year. You don't want to be paying taxes on that because you're getting taxed already as is. So start your TFSA as soon as you start 18. You get to put in $8,000 a year. I have to look that up. 8 to 10 grand a year you can put in there, and then let it just grow. Just let it grow, okay? And you'd be surprised the power of saving money. But don't do it until you get to your older stages in life, because let me tell you, it's gonna get harder and harder to save up money. Trust me. Okay, some of you are already saving, which is great. But do the tax-free savings account once you turn 18. Some of you are already 18, which is great. switching gears a little bit, I need you to go to page 18 and have a highlighter ready for this one. Page 18, right? I know sometimes I'm talking and you're trying to tune me out. I don't blame you. But if you can listen while you're young and take some of the things I'm talking, trust me, when you're 60, I'll be gone already by then, right? There'll be no more Mr. Dirksen. But try to remember, right, when you're young and you get to 60, you put the money aside. That's great. Okay, so age 18, initial startup costs when purchasing a home. These ones here that I'm showing you are called one-time, like one-time costs, sometimes referred to as closing costs because you're closing the deal. You're closing the deal. Okay. Guess what? The biggest expense you're gonna incur, the biggest expense is your down payment. You need a minimum of 5% down. This is regulated federally. You do not get to bypass this. Okay. So it could be that your parents give you that money. Sure, good for you. But you need the 5%. But watch this. You ready for this? It is recommended. It is recommended that you save up an additional 2 to 4% of the purchase price. That's for the startup costs. You're like, what? Another 2 to 4%? Nobody told me that. To be honest, when I bought my first house, I was shocked with how many extras I had to pay. And I was like, I'm not ready for this. Right? So you might be in a tight situation. So what do you need extra money for? Here's the first one. Home inspection. It is highly recommended that you get the house inspected, right? Before you finalize the offer. You know how cars get a safety check, right? Houses don't get a safety check. It blows my mind. There is no regulation that makes the homeowner have an inspection done before you sell your house. You can sell your house, you can cover up any like damages. If you're pretty crafty, you can just make it look nice. Somebody buys it, and all of a sudden, oops, there was a leak in the basement. They just covered it up for now, right? And so what you need to do is get a home inspector before you buy your house. It will cost you anywhere between $300 to $500. And you might think, oh my goodness, that's a lot of money. Is it? For a $300,000 house? I don't think it's a lot of money. It's probably the biggest purchase you're ever going to make in your life. And you don't want to be buying a house that is a lemon, right? That has issues, hidden issues. So this person is usually a builder, used to be a builder. They're really knowledgeable of houses and what needs to be there. And they'll do a thorough inspection. They'll go into the attic, which is, some students don't know what an attic is, and I don't blame you because you don't, this is the ceiling of the house. It's a very shallow house. This is the ceiling. This is your roof. This is the attic. And the attic, nobody ever goes in there really. Some people store stuff there, but most people don't go in there. But you can tell if the roof is leaking by going into the attic. You'll start seeing stains, like water stains, like running down from the inside. It's super hot in there in the summer. It's super hot. I know because I went in there. But you see stains, like, oh, there's a leak here, right? And if that drips down into the drywall, like this is not drywall, but a lot of houses, you have a drywall ceiling there. You can literally live for months and months and not notice that water is accumulating above the ceiling because it's all sealed off, right? So they go up there. They check wiring. Is the electrical up to date? Is your electrical panel too small for the house? Like all of those things, they make sure everything is in order. So what I'm going to ask you here is to write down in your offer, in your offer to purchase include something that says pending inspection. So let's say you find the house, your dream house. Maybe some of you just recently bought a house, or your family did, and you moved, and it was like nice and exciting experience, right? Maybe some of you are just waiting to move. When you put in an offer and the homeowner picks your offer, they're saying no to all the other offers that came in, right? They're saying, no, 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 we accepted this offer. Okay, you're now the buyer. If you all of a sudden get cold feet, it's like, I actually don't want the house. You cannot do that. They can legally come after you because you've just made them turn down a bunch of offers. But if you have this in your offer to purchase, it's technically a legal document. If you tell them, no, 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 I will get that house inspected. Once it passes inspection, then I will buy it. This is a nice little added clause that allows you to back out should there be something wrong with the house. It also allows you to say to the owner, wait a minute, my inspector found that your shingles will need to be replaced in a year because it's bad. Are you willing to drop the price by $15,000? Because then I'll still go for it, because it's not too difficult to get your roof redone, right? It's a thing you do all the time. And so maybe the owner will say, oh, well, yeah, sure, I'll drop it 15 grand, because now they technically need to disclose that. So it's very powerful. Anyways, remember home inspection. I just talked a lot. I need to kind of hone it back a little bit. Another one you might encounter is an appraisal fee. An appraiser is appointed to appraise the property to determine the value. Sometimes because the housing market has been going up like crazy, people were overpaying by like 60, 70, 80, sometimes even 100,000 over asking price. The banks, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, how much did you pay for that? It's 350 in our system. You paid 450? We're gonna send out somebody to appraise your property. We're gonna make sure that what you're buying is actually worth that. So this costs a couple $100 too, by the way. Mortgage application fee, I'll skip that because this is big. Land transfer tax. Don't worry about this chart. I'll explain that later, but this is important. You are required to pay this tax to the Manitoba Land Titles Office. I will say this on the side here. Thousands of dollars. Write that down. This is thousands of dollars. This is the one that shocked me when I bought my first house. Nobody told me about this. I don't know why, to be honest. Like, hey, I want to buy a house, I have 5% down. Do you have what it takes to pay the land transfer tax? Nobody asked me that. I just got the bill and I was like, almost fell over, right? So that land transfer tax, we're going to calculate that in this course, but that's a huge one-time expense you're going to encounter. The next two I'm going to chunk up. So the survey thing, the surveys, every property has imaginary boundaries. Did you know that? So there's something the city has where your lot is, right? There's boundaries everywhere. The city has a boundary. The city knows exactly where your property is located. Exactly. Like they have ways to measure that. And that's what the surveyors, where's the surveyor? And the property survey shows you that. Okay. So that's a boundary. So let's say you build a fence here. This is the fence. This is your property line. You built a fence 2 feet over to this side. Oops. That your neighbor can now say, hey, wait a minute. You are 2 feet into my property. You need to move your fence. They can actually say that. Let's say it gets worse than that. You just trusted that this is the fence and you built a garage right next to it. And your neighbor knocks on your door and says, "Hey, your garage is on my side." They legally can make you tear down your garage and move it over, or just tear it down and just move everything. So you got to be careful. You want the survey. If there is no survey of your property, you're going to have to pay to get it. I would strongly recommend you get it. The banks usually require it. Okay, next. Additional legal costs and legal fees. I'm going to bunch that up too. You should have a lawyer that handles all the paperwork. And usually it's not hard to find. Real estate agents usually have someone they will recommend to you to do the paperwork, but you should have a lawyer that does all the paperwork. By the way, the money isn't just, you don't give someone 300,000 cash unless you have it, but it usually goes from your lawyer to the other lawyer, and then that lawyer gives it to the property, the property owner. Okay, you don't really exchange the money just like that. Let's keep going. I'm almost done, by the way. These are all one-time expenses, by the way. I'm just going to highlight one or two back here. There's moving expenses, of course. And I will say there's decorating costs at the bottom there. And you're like, decorating? It's basically renovations or blinds or curtains. Let me tell you something. I never thought about that really until I bought my first house. Like, what? A couple $100 on curtains, right? And they weren't just any curtains. It had to be wife approved curtains, right? And that's like a couple $100, right? So one more thing to keep into account. All right, I'm done talking about one time, but I will ask you on ACs, and so have 2 or 3 on your study sheet. That's what I would do. 2 or 3 of these that I just highlighted on your study sheet. So come with me back to mortgages, because I needed to want to talk about it all the way to page 31. And you're going to get work time. More than I thought I would give you, but that's okay. Go to page 31 right now. Write this down so you know which pages I'm talking about. I actually did 27 and 28 with you. Those are kind of the ones you can draw from. But this is the worksheet that talks about monthly payments, interest, etc. Grab a highlighter, and I'm just going to point out a few things that I'm asking you to do here that are based on what I just talked about. So sure, you're going to do a bunch of calculating or whatnot, but if you go to the bottom of 31, these are the ones I want you to highlight because these are the explain type of questions. How could you lower the monthly payment for this mortgage? That's just an explain question. That's not a math question. Okay. Then you come with me to page 32. E, go to E, right? Other than down payment, give me 2 one-time additional costs. We just talked about that. Miguel saved an additional $8,000 for closing costs. It is recommended that you save up to 2%. Has he saved up enough money? So you're going to have to do a little bit of math there and justify if 8,000 is indeed 2%. And I will help you, right? Like, I don't mind helping you as long as you work. I'll give you hints, no problem, because this is the time to ask questions. And so there are more like these, so I just wanted to highlight that. So start on page 31. I will post the answer key within minutes of you starting, but you have to make sure you start, okay?